start.
Good evening to one and all. On behalf of IEEE CS Madras section, CSI Chennai chapter, ACM Chennai, DELNET, we cordially welcome you all to the webinar on Mitigating Misinformation in the Social Media and Generative AI Approach by Dr. Shalini Arya. Now I request Mr. H.R. Mohan, Chair, Events, IEEE CS Madras section, to deliver the welcome address. I introduce the chief guest.
Okay. Greetings and good evening to one and all. On behalf of the organizing units, IEEE Computer Society, Madras, CSI Chennai, ACM Chennai, and DELNET, let me once again welcome today's eminent speaker, Dr. Shalini Ars, members and my colleagues from the organizing units, and participants joined the meeting through Google Meet, and those watching the YouTube streaming of today's event. Ever since the internet, messaging services, social media, and now generative AI become universally popular, the misinformation and disinformation surfaced, and now it has become pervasive and also an issue of global concern. Disinformation significantly impacts public opinion, trust, and social cohesion, leading to serious consequences such as political polarization and public health misinformation. Widespread misinformation also has significant economic and social implications. Various strategies for mitigating misinformation include fact-checking initiatives, media literacy programs, and regulatory measures, as well as platform policies aimed at combating misinformation. In our today's talk, Dr. Shalini will share her conceptualization and decoding of the disinformation phenomenon, exploring its historical context and theoretical frameworks. The talk will provide an overview of social network analysis and how it can help visualize hidden connections. Some case studies of the use of deepfakes will also be presented, along with best practices for mitigating misinformation. Now, with great pleasure, let me introduce Dr. Shalini Ars, known to me for almost 4 decades, that is right from mid of 80s, through the library and information science circles. I had closely associated with her in several conferences and events related to information science. Dr. Shalini Ars is an information scientist with expertise in diverse aspects of information, including theoretical constructs, computing, and cultural dimensions. She holds a master's degree in library and information science and a postgraduate diploma in computer science. During her doctoral research, she explored the cognitive aspects of relevance decisions in information retrieval systems. Dr. Shalini adopts an interdisciplinary approach influenced by her background in physics and chemistry, which aids her in investigating complex phenomena like disinformation through social network analysis. Dr. Shalini started her academic career at the University of Mysore in 1976, specializing in informatics through teaching and research. She pioneered the electronic thesis and dissertation, the digital library movements in India, initiating the Vidyanidhi Digital Library Project in 1999 and organizing the 4th International Conference on Asian Digital Libraries in 2001. As an academic leader, she founded the International School of Information Management at the University of Mysore and the Myra School of Business, Mysore, with the International School of Information Management spearheading the iSchool movement in India. With over 200 research papers published in the international journals, Dr. Shalini is recognized as a speaker on digitally enabled scholarship, focusing on digital libraries, open science, and social network analysis. Her accolades include being named Mortensen's Distinguished Lecturer at the University of Illinois, UC, in 2010, receiving the Network Digital Library of Thesis and Dissertation Adobe Leadership Award in 2004, and Emerald Research Fund Award in 2007, and serving as a Fulbright Scholar during 2000 and 2001. Beyond academia, Dr. Shalini serves on the board of Guru, an education technology non-profit organization, and as a trustee of the Sarda Ranganathan Endowment for Library Science. As an associate editor of Information Matters, she conceived and curated 22 episodes of Info Fire, featuring interviews with visionaries like Winsor, N.R. Narayan Murthy, and Arjun Malhotra. Currently, she is engaged in 2 Royal Academy of Engineering funded research projects focusing on digital public infrastructure development. With this brief note of introduction, let me now request our eminent speaker, Dr. Shalini, to enlighten us on the subject of mis and disinformation, which affects us in all directions. Over to Dr. Shalini.
Thank you, Mohan. At the outset, I would like to thank all the organizations involved in organizing this event, especially IEEE CS Madras, ACM Chennai, CSI Chennai, as well as DELNET, for giving me an opportunity to share my views and some of my work in this space, or I would say the topic of disinformation, which I have been focusing on since the last couple of years. And special thanks to Mohan for organizing this, and also for such a generous introduction about me. First of all, I would also like to apologize for the glitches that we had, but we did a dry run despite, and it went very well then. But anyway, that's what technology is. That's okay. We are anyway started. So the topic today is very dear to me, as well as, it's a topic that affects every one of us. So the title that I have tried to give here is Decoding Disinformation, Mitigating Misinformation in the Social Media and the Generative AI Epoch. The agenda, it's a very vast canvas that I have developed, but hopefully, I will just touch upon it, even though my slide deck is huge. I'm not going to be dealing with all of them. I'm just trying to give an overview of all these 4 different aspects that I'm going to deal with, and then see if there are any questions relating to any one of them, and then elaborate them. So this is what I'm going to be covering: post-truth era and fighting falsity. And then, as Mohan mentioned, I'm currently working on developing a theoretical construct for deconstructing disinformation, and also some of the methods. As I said, since it affects all of us, we also need to worry about how do we, as common people, not just as researchers, but how do we help mitigate misinformation. And I have, as part of my theoretical construct, I have also developed this construct of how in the social media the contagion theory works, and why the spread of disinformation is so fast. It's primarily because of the contagion theory. And then, of course, since today we cannot talk about any topic for that matter, not just disinformation, any topic for that matter, without actually considering and touching upon AI, generative AI, etc. So I'm going to be covering a little bit of that. And then I finally would like to come to the SNA, that is social network analysis, which is the area of my research work, and hopefully give some case studies of fake news, particularly deep fakes, etc. That's the agenda that I have. Last December, during Christmas time, I found this image or cartoon. Only true information, no fakes, please, to the kids asking Santa. I thought this is how all-pervasive disinformation or misinformation has become, if it has entered our popular culture. That's when, you say that it has become all-pervasive. Now, you can see here, there is this quote: a lie can travel halfway around the world while the truth is putting on its shoes. It's a very nice quote, which also talks about the speed at which, or the velocity at which, fake news spreads. But ironically, this quote itself is actually half true. What I mean by half true is it's actually attributed to Mark Twain and many others. But it's not true. That is, Mark Twain never said this. Supposedly, it's because people don't know how it spread. It is probably a morphed version of Jonathan Swift, falsehood flies and the truth comes limping after it. That's the real quote that Jonathan Swift wrote on this topic in 1710. The point I'm trying to say here is many of the oft quoted or used quotes, very nice quotes, themselves are not actually really truthful. For example, there is another one. Particularly, journalists are very concerned about fake news because they are the ones dealing with news, right? So there is one old maxim called, if your mother says she loves you, check it out. That's the maxim, that's the motto of journalists, that is, please check. But this quote itself is actually, again, half true. So the point I wanted to say is the issue is so huge, so humongous. The problem is that even the quotes that are used to talk about the problem are actually not real, accurate ones. Now, the other point that I wanted to highlight is it's nothing new. Even though we today talk about fake news, disinformation, etc., in the context of social media, it's quite old as at least, say, 2000 and odd years. Primarily, this is a short guide to the history of fake news and disinformation for the journalists generally. I picked a couple of them from there and also from outside. See, as you can see, some of the milestones in the fake news is, it goes back to actually the Republic of Rome or the Cleopatra and Antony times. Octavian and Mark Antony, they had the civil war during 44 BC. And at that time, Octavian actually used very effectively, in fact, something like, as somebody has said, Twitter-worthy, tweets kind of thing, we etched in the coins to actually malign Mark Antony. So that is, that gives you a sense of how old this problem is. Then, of course, another important milestone, as we all know, is the Gutenberg Revolution. But what happened with Gutenberg printing presses, along with facts, even invented facts also took off. Remember, it was easy to spread, right, with the printing revolution. Then one other milestone or hoax that I want to mention here is what is known as the Great Moon Hoax. A well-established newspaper, such as the New York Sun, then, that is in 1835, published an article called Discovery of Life on Moon. It was non-existing, but then it published an article, and then there was this. That's why it was called as the Great Moon Hoax. Then, moving forward, maybe some of you still are familiar with this. That is, there is a section of society which still doubts the moon landing. And as you know, last year, 2019, the whole world celebrated 50 years of the moon landing, Apollo moon landing, right? Neil Armstrong and landing on the moon. But there was an article in 1976 published by Bill Kaysing, who stated that it was a giant lie. It was all created in the studio, okay? And then it was all faked. After that, reams and reams of paper or digital thing is printed about how that is not true. That is, the fake is not true. There is enough evidence. Even then, even today, there are still people who still doubt this moon landing to be a fake one. Then come to another important one. Another important as a case study, I'm saying, what is known as the Lancet MMR autism fraud. Basically, you might have heard, today there is this anti-vaxxers movement, especially in the US and other countries too. And with COVID-19, it also kind of spread. Some people, what is known as the vaccine hesitancy, or sometimes some people are anti-vaxxers movement, it is called. It all started with a fraud or an article in the prestigious journal Lancet by a medical doctor called Andrew Wakefield, who wrote this paper, but of course it was retracted later, it was discredited, and the Dr. Wakefield was deregistered, that is no longer a doctor. But even then, still people doubt, because they know there is no proof to say that MMR vaccine gives rise to autism. But there are people who still believe that, and that was the start of the anti-vaxxers movement, or the vaccine hesitancy as it is known as. So you can understand the enormity of the problem. It's not about mitigating. It's not about, how do you convince? It's more a social problem. Okay, it's not just you verify and then you prove that it is not true, but then it continues to hold sway over at least a section of the people. And talking about fake news, disinformation, these are all different terms that are used. Fake news, disinformation, misinformation, rumors, hoaxes, parody, humor, and of course now with the online thing, it's also called as clickbait. Okay, because there are so many words. In fact, First Draft, it's a think tank in the US advocating it advocates that, we should use a umbrella phrase or term called information disorder, collectively referring to all of this. But however, they advocate that we should use an appropriate term for each, because fake news is different from hoaxes. It's different from rumors. Conspiracy theories, conspiracy theories are also abound. Some of you might be familiar with the 5G conspiracy theory. Everywhere there is a conspiracy theory on one thing or the other. So that's why they call it as the information disorder. Now we are talking about fake, right? So what is truth? Let us think about that. See, truth itself is a very complicated concept, because philosophers have been studying and debating about it. What is truth? What is the theory that we have to use? According to one of the widely accepted theory known as the correspondence theory, there are different theories of truth. Correspondence theory is one of the widely accepted one. It says truth is when words correspond to an accepted or mutually available reality that can be examined and confirmed. This is a very good definition. That's another reason I have chosen it. And it's also a commonsensical understanding of truth, right? It should be verifiable. It should be relating to actual reality, and it should be examined and confirmed. However, long back, Saint Augustine, one of the greatest philosophers, theologian, he said, truth is like a lion. You don't have to defend it. Let it loose. It will defend itself. However, I would say that we need to fight falsity, especially these days. Okay. So along with the fake news, etc., another term that we come across, or which is widely used, is what is known as the post-truth era. Probably you might be knowing that post-truth became word of the year by the Oxford Dictionary in the year 2016. I suppose all of you know why it became the word of the year, because of the US elections in 2016, where, truth became a casualty. So that's why, and everybody was using post-truth, etc. That's why Oxford Dictionary chose it as word of the year. So today, across various aspects, as I said earlier, election denialism, vaccine hesitancy, across this, disinformation or misinformation and fake news, etc., they dominate, and also they destroy lives and society. The denial of scientific facts about smoking, evolution, vaccines, climate change, etc., they actually, they give us a roadmap over how this is happening. In fact, there is a book by the title Post-Truth by one very well-known author called Lee McIntyre, which is published by the MIT. In 2018, he wrote this book, and then he gives another sort of an elaboration of what is post-truth and why it happened. So he says, assertion of ideological supremacy by which its practitioners try to compel someone to believe something regardless of the evidence. That's a very key concept here. That is, people are trying to compel others to believe in something without evidence. That's what. And then he also says that we can fight post-truth, but first step is to understand it. Okay. In fact, that's why I have tried to construct this conceptualization of what is disinformation or misinformation. The other factor that has actually compounded this whole fake news or disinformation is social networks. Many people have been working on this. That's why I've just highlighted some of the reports. Okay. The idea here is that because of social networks, the penetration is deeper, and then speed is faster. And then, that's the one that is creating havoc today. And people are working towards it. Everybody is concerned about it. Now, looking at the cost of disinformation, in fact, Prevency, a German international consulting company, which works towards reputational risk and crisis management, etc., it actually sort of, computes a certain figure that is $78 billion per year as the cost, or because of reputation loss, risk, etc., cost of disinformation. Carnegie Endowment for International Peace, countering disinformation effectively and evidence-based, that is everybody, what I'm trying to say here is everybody is working towards it, and all of them say it is important that it is not just about, to define, understand and measure. Disinformation is also important. And of course, 2024 has been a year where, the elections are happening everywhere. Some have already happened. So that's why Global Risk Reports names 2024 the misinformation and disinformation as a top risk, primarily because of the fact that, 4.2 billion people have gone to the polls this year. And in this era of AI and misinformation, disinformation, we need to worry about it, that everybody is, that's why democracies particularly, they are worried about the impact of misinformation and disinformation. In fact, so much so, the Brookings Institute, a report, calls this a disinformation a wicked problem. What is meant by a wicked problem is that are highly complex, interdependent, and unstable. And it also says it can not only be mitigated, managed, or minimized, but it cannot be solved. You cannot solve the disinformation problem. I've tried to elaborate what is this meaning of a wicked problem, why people call it as wicked, not because of it is wicked, but wicked problem. In fact, the phrase was coined in the discipline of social planning somewhere in 60s. The idea here is that this cannot be solved by applying standard methods. They demand creative solutions. That is what, the researchers said. And one of the main reasons why I have brought this out here in this particular webinar, in this talk of mine, is because today we have a gathering of very diverse groups, right? We have CSI, we have DELNET, etc. I assume that the audience and the people who are involved in this are actually from diverse disciplines. Collaboration among diverse disciplines is important, is necessary, in fact, to solve wicked problems. That is what research has shown. Without going into the details, I'm just skipping to the next concept. It's not just a wicked problem, but some people have even argued that digital age and the rise of social media have accelerated the social changes so much that disinformation has become a crisis discipline. So that is what we are in crisis. So it's a crisis discipline. It's a wicked problem. Thereby, we need to focus our attention on disinformation from various perspectives. So first, let me just go to the theoretical constructs of disinformation. I'm sure all the engineers out there would think, oh, theory. Why do we need a theory, right? That's why I have got this quote for you who doubt why do we need a theory or a theoretical construct for disinformation. There is nothing so practical as a good theory. That is the statement by Kurt Lewin in 1952, who is a very well-known statistician. Now, deconstructing disinformation, let us first go to misinformation and disinformation to understand what is the difference, because normally we use these two terms interchangeably, but there is a difference. See, the difference is in what is the intent. Both defer to inaccuracies or inauthentic information, but the difference between misinformation and disinformation is, whereas misinformation is unintentional spread or unintentional misinformation or inaccurate one, disinformation is intentionally false. That is a major difference, okay? Then there is a third one called malinformation also. So in order to understand disinformation, we need to understand the nuances of the differences. Malinformation refers to information that stems from the truth, but is often exaggerated in a way that misleads and causes potential harm. So basically, we need to understand these differences between the three terms, okay? So in order to understand, I wanted to create a Venn diagram of misinformation, disinformation, and malinformation. On the right hand, you see this. This is a Venn diagram created by Copilot, one of the tools of AI that we have. As you can see, it has not done a right job. Because you can see here, misinformation is in the center. Actually, that is not right. It should be disinformation. Why I brought this out is, in addition to talking about where mis and dis and malinformation lie, it's also important to understand that Chat GPT or Copilot, etc., get it wrong. So the nuances could be lost. Okay. So basically, inaccuracy is the main thing, that it's false. But the intent is the key here between mis and disinformation. Okay. Now, this misinformation, disinformation, etc. Now onwards, I'm going to use primarily disinformation as the term, even though there are, as I said, some people use it interchangeably, but there is a difference. See, with the internet, with social media, actually, it has now, as I said earlier, aggravated. Okay, so in fact, internet or this technology has become a double-edged sword, because I remember I myself, 1990s, 1995 to be precise, when the internet or the World Wide Web became a public, available infrastructure. I was actually giving talks about how deliciously democratic institution internet has created. Similarly, in fact, when the Web 2.0 came, I was teaching a course on Web 2.0. I was saying, it is now a two-way communication. So things are, so from this idealized vision, that has been actually replaced by the angst, anxiety, as well as concern. That is, we are all, disillusioned now about the beauty of the internet. I'm not saying that today it's still the main point here is it's a double-edged sword. Okay. So I now offer a little bit about what I have constructed as the conceptual construction of disinformation. My own construction of this is derived from, a very well-known philosopher of information. Luciana Floridi is a philosopher of information who is currently at the Yale University Center for Digital Ethics. He is directing that. He wrote a book with the title The Philosophy of Information in 2011. Why I use this? He discusses, in very, very detailed way, how do we look at the philosophy of information. So I've just picked up what he primarily says is we should be concerned about how information should be adequately created, processed, managed, and used. And he notes that the information process is defective. What happens if the information process is defective? So I derive my conceptualization of disinformation from that theoretical construct. That is, the process of creating information, processing information, or using information, if it is actually not done properly, right? If it is defective, then it causes disinformation. That is my theoretical construct. So the process of creating, in fact, as Mohan mentioned while introducing me, my own PhD was on the notion of information itself. I studied information, and now I'm studying disinformation very deeply, because information and disinformation are going hand in hand. So the theory of information is about it's the outcome of a defective method of creating or processing or managing information. That is when disinformation is created. I bring in another, very well-known philosopher. Always we go back to Aristotle, right? Aristotle theory of deviance. What Aristotle said, among many things, in fact, he did not actually coin a theory of deviance, but his work on ethics, from that actually you can say that he has developed this theory of deviance. Why I'm mentioning this here is he addresses the community life, activity, agency, and persuasive interchange in ways that not only are remarkably consistent with contemporary challenges such as disinformation. So he gives, how do we study why this deviance happens? Okay, that's why I bring in the theory of deviance. So he said men do wrong. Of course, women also do wrong when they think that it can be done and when they think that it can be done by them. When they think that their action will either be undiscovered or if discovered will remain unpunished. So this is the construct, the social construct within which the social network works today. Okay, and I also bring in Saint Augustine, another philosopher. He actually classifies he brings in eight categories of lies, starting with lies in religious teaching, lies that harm others and help no one, lies that harm others and help someone. Like this, he makes a classification. But after making that classification, Saint Augustine says, despite that, according to descending order, he classifies them. He still says that this is actually ethically impermissible. That means lies are not ethically right. Okay. So in fact, both Aristotle and Saint Augustine say that the Socratic method is the best method because you need to develop critical thinking. That's the only way that you can come up with discerning the fake news, etc. I also have used the Indian philosophy and epistemology to construct my idea of what is disinformation. According to Indian philosophy and epistemology, there are 6 pramanas. Different schools of philosophy, Indian philosophy have different ones. I have chosen this 6 pramanas, are 6 methods of seeking proof. One is pratyaksha, that is with the help of perception, anumana, which means inference, upamana, which means comparison and analogy, arthapatti, that is postulate, we posit or postulate based on some circumstance, derived from circumstances, anupalabdhi, which means non-perception or negative cognition, and shabda, which means word, past or present. Basically, it means, depend on written evidence. That's the idea of shabda. Okay, these are the 6 pramanas or 6 methods of seeking proof. Based on that, I construct my theory of disinformation. Since we are talking about social media, it's also important to consider what is social media today, how it is. We all know that, as I mentioned earlier, social media has emerged somewhere around 2005, almost, let us say, about 10 years after the Web 1.0, Web 2.0 helped build this social media. The problem with this was that the foundational logic of online interaction became clickbait algorithms. Because people will click something only when it is emotional extreme, not rationality. It needs to be something which is more emotional. That's why it is given rise to this kind of a phenomena that we are seeing. What is happening is this formed a cycle. Monetizing clicks by feeding readers with dopamine-inducing, titillating content. So this induced some kind of a cycle which leads towards this toxic extremes that we see on social media or online interaction. And you might have observed why people are so rude on social media or even online interaction. Somebody does something, everybody comments something, and they are so rude. It's primarily because of this extreme behavior. Okay? So the point here is the role of media, particularly social networks, is fundamental in the management of mis or disinformation. Because you need to understand social media and how the collective behavior of people in this social media works. The psychology, the sociology, and the economics. We have already touched upon the economics. Because monetizing. See, all these algorithms, platforms, they monetize based on clickbaits, okay? And clickbaits are the only extreme emotional reactions actually facilitate that. That is where the business model of the social media works, okay? So we need to study the media, social media, and the network effects in order to understand the disinformation phenomena. In fact, in the context of social media, one other well-known author, Anna Lemke, says in her book, this is the new social poison. Social poison generally is the term that is used for drugs, okay? Drugs and narcotics, etc. And she says that today it has become, social media has become the drug because we are all actually become compulsive users of social media. Every one of us, including me. I use social media quite a lot. The problem is because it has become an addictive behavior, which is actually causing fake news or spreading of the fake news faster. And so in order to understand this, so why this social media is adding fuel to the fake news is you have to understand the collective behavior of people. Collective behavior of people means people who are not part of any organization necessarily, but loosely organized group of people. They tend to be spontaneous, and then, that's what is known as the collective behavior of people. Okay. In this collective behavior, in order to understand, I bring in one of, again, a very old book by Lebon. It's called The Crowd, a study of the popular mind, crowd psychology, published in 1895. In fact, what he says is crowds are not the sum of their individual parts. Why I'm saying this is, as individuals, we are more sane, less prone to these kinds of things. But when we are part of a social network, when we are part of that, we become what he calls as a crowd becomes one psychological entity. And it is important to see that, what he writes in more than 100 years back, having no doubts about what it believes to be truth or error, and possessing a clear idea of its strength, the crowd is as authoritarian as it is intolerant. In fact, what we call as mob mentality, right? Doesn't it sound familiar, even though it was written almost 130 years back? That is, the crowd feels that it has authority, and then usually they are intolerant. So Gustav Le Bon, he is considered as the founder of crowd psychology, and he developed this theory of social contagion or contagion theory. And he argued that they exert a hypnotic influence over their members. That's why I'm highlighting this. In social media, people some kind of have that hypnotic influence over the groups. Okay? So that is why he calls it a social contagion. This behavior as a social contagion. So basically, disinformation is spreading faster, and then, it's polarizing society, primarily because of this collective behavior. So that's why in my theoretical construct of disinformation, I say that disinformation is a collective behavior on online social networks such as Facebook or Twitter, etc. That is what is causing this. In fact, contagion theory was extended to the social networks by Sampson, and he called it as virality, which we all know, that's why we said it has gone viral, right? So I have decoded disinformation from a theoretical construct, saying that is using Pramana as well as Floridi's philosophy of information. I say that disinformation is a deviant behavior, framing it within the Aristotelian theory of deviance. And then I say, for example, my construction is Le Bon's contagion theory. Also, it helps us to understand and explain the epidemiology of disinformation. And in my research, I use social network analysis as a line of inquiry to understand and how do we limit the spread of disinformation through social networks. As I earlier mentioned, it is basically the business model. Okay? So I will quickly come to this now, the important topic, that is AI. We all know AI is the talk of the town. Even though thinking machines have been with us for the last 50, 60 years, it became talk of the town only since, actually, I would say, the tipping point for this phenomena was the release of the ChatGPT in November 2022. Because not only it was released, but it was openly available. That's why it became such a, important thing for everybody. And in fact, this AI was there, but then ChatGPT made this AI attention, or people paying attention to it, primarily because that was a tool that was actually handed to every one of us in this world. That's why they say AI is coming at humanity fast and furious. Okay? So I will not because I have, in order to be complete, I have also given a definition of what is AI. But essentially, we all know what is AI. It's basically machine's ability to perform cognitive functions that we usually associated with human minds. Okay? I just mentioned there are, hundreds of books actually on AI. I use recite this particular book, The Age of AI, primarily because they talk about this is the new epoch. Remember, I have used the word epoch in my title of this talk also, primarily because it shifts the focus. The old epoch, that is the enlightened ethos, which places humans at the center of all knowable or knowledge, etc., displacing God. Today, according to the authors, including Henry Kissinger, Eric Schmidt is the former CEO of Google. So according to these authors, now we are in this age wherein the new epoch is where the humans are actually replaced by machines. Okay, that's the important thing. So the evolution of AI, as I said, I will quickly run through. The main point I want to say here is that the term artificial intelligence was used for the first time in 1955 at a workshop that was held in Dartmouth College. Okay, now another point that I wanted to highlight before coming to generative AI is the shift in approach in AI. See, as we all know, earlier the AI was primarily using what is known as I said here, rule-based symbolic reasoning. But by 1990s, there was the shift in approach from rule-based symbolic reasoning to database, right? Is big data, it's also called as the big data phase, right? So with the availability of humongous amount of data, the shift happened from, rule-based one to machine learning methods. So another thing I wanted to highlight is, probably everyone knows this, there are three categories. Generally, AI is categorized into three groups: weak, strong, and super intelligence. So weak is also known as ANI, that is artificial narrow intelligence. Artificial narrow intelligence is primarily what can help us do a single task. Knowledge gained from completing the task will not be actually applied to other tasks. That is what human intelligence is. We don't have to learn every time. Once we learn something, we know that we can apply that. That is, we can generalize it. We can actually apply the same thing to others. But in case of ANI, that is artificial narrow intelligence, it does not happen. And this next stage is artificial general intelligence. AGI is when machines can mimic human intelligence or behaviors, and they are able to learn and apply its intelligence to solve any problem. They can think, understand, etc. See, AGI is expected to be able to solve problems, able to do many things that we are doing. Okay, so according to most people, currently, we are still in the ANI phase, that is narrow intelligence, including the autonomous or self-driving cars also. It is intelligence in a very narrow, specific area. Now, the third phase is what is known as the artificial superintelligence, ASI. In fact, this term was actually coined by Nick Bostrom, who is a professor in Oxford University, and he also wrote a book with the title Superintelligence. This is the book. In this, he was talking about the dangers, the path, the dangers, strategies, what we need to do when we reach the stage of superintelligence. We have not yet reached, of course. But recently, that is 2024, Nick Bostrom has written another book. Here, he has taken a more positive outlook about AI or superintelligence. He says, if our AI development does not go wrong, that is, we are able to develop it safely, govern it well, and make good use of AI, what will happen? It will be an utopia, that is deep utopia, that's what he said. So basically what I'm trying to summarize here is about that there is this danger path, there is also this utopian path if we do it well, if we govern AI very well. Now let us understand the various technologies very quickly behind this for the benefit of those who are not very familiar with it. Artificial intelligence, machine learning, and deep learning. This is the hierarchy in which it works, right? So I have already mentioned what is machine learning, because it's basically learning based on huge amounts of data. Now, generative AI is a category of AI that can generate, remember here, it can generate new output based on the data they have been trained on. So it uses deep learning methods, what is known as generative adversarial networks, to create new content. That is where the danger in the context of disinformation lies. It can create new content, okay? That is what this is trained for, and that is what is used for, okay? Now, deep learning is the technology that is being used currently. So in order to understand the difference between deep learning and machine learning, this image will do. The main difference is in the stage of feature extraction. Now in deep learning, it is automated. Feature extraction is automated, and the main, also you can say, in case of machine learning, it was dealing primarily with structured data, whereas deep learning, it can handle unstructured data. So deep learning basically works through what is known as artificial neural networks. They try to mimic the human brain through a combination of, this is important, data inputs, weights, as well as bias. So we give weights as well as bias to it, to the development of this. That's where the danger also lies in. Okay, these elements work together to recognize, classify, and describe objects within data. So the automatic feature engineering is the one that separates or distinguishes deep learning from machine learning. So these neural networks, the main thing here is there is an input layer, there is an output layer, and in between there are these hidden layers, hundreds and thousands of hidden layers. Okay, that is what is giving the power to the new technology of deep learning. Okay, the layer structure of algorithms of the ANN. So I will not go into the details of this. Again, I will just mention the major two types, that is the CNN and then RN. The convolutional neural networks are used in image analysis, whereas recurrent neural networks are used in case of sequential data, text data, etc. These are the different types of ANN. I am not going to the details except just putting it out there. The main reason is, even in, for example, there are automatic methods for detecting fake news. Some of these algorithms are used. That's why I'm just mentioning. And as you know, transformers are the main thing that are done today with, those are the technologies behind the generative AI, such as ChatGPT, etc. Okay. Now let us come to generative AI. That is the main focus of our talk today. I'm just taking the OpenAI example. The main thing is here, the wide range of applications. It can create images, it can create text, it can also create audio. So sound as well as video as well as text can be created. New content can be created through this generative AI. ChatGPT is one such example. I have not given examples of ChatGPT because everyone is familiar with this, except just mentioning the another of OpenAI, that is DALL-E, creating images from text. So in 2021, OpenAI introduced DALL-E. I don't know how many of you have used it. It's again a neural network that creates original realistic images from text for a wide range of concepts expressible in natural language. It can combine concepts, attributes, and styles. The latest version of DALL-E, known as DALL-E 3, was released in October 2023. So this version naturally offers significant improvements over the previous version. So another important advancement or improvement of DALL-E is it has integrated this with ChatGPT. Thereby, you can use the same prompt engineering in order to prompt method to get the better image or the kind of image that you want. This just a sample. If I say, for example, create David of Michelangelo as DJ. We know Michelangelo is this picture. He was not a DJ. DJ was not there earlier, but it can create this kind of a DJ image of Michelangelo. So you can see how powerful this technology is. So you can say, create an abstract painting of artificial intelligence. It has created this image. For example, if I say an abstract oil painting of a river, the ChatGPT gives this kind of a, that is DALL-E gives. You can even say style. Van Gogh, well-known, painter. You can say painting style. Follow this. Create an image of an American football player. See, it has created this. A Van Gogh style painting of an American football player. Okay. Music from generative AI. I'm not going to give that music. Music is wonderful. It can create music too. Okay. Not only that, it can also create paint. That is, give the painting and it will create music based on that painting. That is the power of, okay. Now, LLM, as you know, behind this generative AI is the large language models. That is now using NLP. All of this is not new. You know that large language models were there before. We were using some of these technologies, which was earlier known as information extraction technology. That has now become the LLM model. Okay. The main thing I want to highlight here is the rapid growth. Just see the growth, evolution of ChatGPT. Okay. When it was released in 2018, it contained 117 million parameters. The second version, which was released in 2019, it had 1.5 billion parameters. Then ChatGPT 3 had 175 billion parameters, whereas ChatGPT 4 is supposed to be having 220 billion parameters, which about 1.76 trillion. That is the power. So you can see here the power of LLMs, okay, because the growth. One major problem with ChatGPT or generative AI is the hallucination problem. The hallucination problem is a big problem because they hallucinate. In fact, hallucination is a concept which was coined by Google AI researchers in 2018. It basically refers to the errors or mistakes in the generated text, which are semantically and syntactically correct, possible, but in fact they're incorrect and sometimes even nonsensical. Okay. The main concern today in the context of disinformation is this. It can create false or factually incorrect information, content. That is a huge problem, particularly with in the context of disinformation. So in fact, this problem, we cannot probably solve it in the near future, according to some of the experts. What it means, hallucination means basically it conflates different things. It simply makes up things which are not existing there. In fact, in this context, I wanted to highlight, one comment made by, as Mohan mentioned, I have been doing this interviewing of famous people, including windsurf. I asked him about his opinion about generative AI. He compares it to what he calls as he says it's like a salad shooter. That is, it chops up the information and shoots it in different directions. Sometimes it gets it right, sometimes it does not get it right. In fact, it has happened to me also, in the sense when I ask something, many times I just want to check what it is doing. I asked a question before interviewing, for example, Narayan Murthy. I said, give me a brief bio of Narayan Murthy. Can you believe it? It says Narayan Murthy founded TCS. That was the answer I got it from ChatGPT. So basically, we need to fight. This is disinformation is a major problem. Generative AI is adding fuel to it. Social media is adding fuel to this fire of falsity. We need to do this. And there are various methods for fake news detection. Usually, they are considered from four aspects. One is what is known as knowledge-based study. Other one is style-based study, propagation-based study, and source-based study. Basically, what it means is check your facts. See, fake detection, as I already mentioned, there is manual as well as automatic. In automatic methods, as you can see here, both traditional ML-based methods are also there. Deep learning-based methods are also used. So I'm just giving some general tips that each one of us has to use every day when we get some information on social media or even in newspaper, is to check for the source. Where is it coming from? And one more thing I wanted to highlight here is, I don't know how many of you are familiar with this. See, WhatsApp introduced a feature or tag called the forwarded many times, basically to prompt users to be wary of the forwarded message. Because forwarded many times basically means that it is intentionally being forwarded to many people, not just to share. And corroborate the news, analyze the tone and language. It's also important to understand or analyze the tone and language. You can easily make out it is. One simple trick is to do the Google search. In fact, in many groups that I am part of, first thing that I will say is, why don't you do a Google search? You can easily make out that it is actually a false information or false image, etc. So there is this basic search. And there are also, if you do a basic search, you also get fact-checked sources. Then there are parody accounts. Then that's what I said, double check the social media account. There will be some account which gives us, some name, well-known celebrity has some name. But usually they are actually parody accounts. So some advanced tools are reverse image search. That gives you authenticity about a particular photograph or image. Another useful source, or rather reverse image search, is T9. And then you also have verification tools. You can actually, this InVid Verify extension is a browser plugin for all of us to use. Then there are this photo forensic. I'm just giving quickly the tools that are fake image detector, forensically fact-checking websites, you have fact-checking websites. In fact, Reporters Lab at Duke University, which is a center for journalism research, that has actually maintains a database of 439 non-partisan fact-checking organizations. It has also established an international fact-checking network, IFCN, by the Poynter Institute, which has developed a code of ethics for all fact-checking organizations. It also does the certification for that. So these are some of the well-known fact-checking websites, okay? Snopes, factcheck.org, PoliticFact. These are all global ones, Full Fact, AFP Fact Check. For example, it also has India, the French one. This is on a wide range of topic globe, including region-specific fact. For example, recently, as you might be knowing, there was this decade-old video of Nitish Kumar from Bihar, the Bihar CM, campaigning for Bihar special status, which was falsely shared as recent. True Media is one very good example, recent example for political deepfakes. Okay, I will come back to that a little later. So these are the Indian fact-checking websites: Boom, Digital Forensics Research, and these are the web. For example, the Quint magazine has its own its own portal called WebCoof. Factly, these are all Indian fact-checking websites. I will just give you one example case study. This was done by actually the Quint. See, recently there was this image of, Sonia Gandhi smoking a cigarette was going viral. You can see how it was. The real photo is this, and altered webcoof identified this. Then we come to deep fakes, which is the latest one that is affecting us. Many of you might have heard of this actress Rashmi Mandana's incident. These are actually, some people make a distinction between what is known as morphed images and deep fakes. Because deepfakes are essentially AI-generated images, not morphed images, okay? In fact, just to mention, Dr. Oren Edzoini, he's a professor emeritus at the University of Washington and the founding chief executive of this Allen Institute for AI. He recently started this truemedia.org in January 2024 in order to fight falsity or fake news, especially in this current election year. Just see that. And he was actually sharing one AI generated image at this AI's impact on the 2024 global elections. Can you believe this? This is an image generated by AI of the same article. It is so realistic. This is AI generated, not a real, not morphed one, okay? And that's why I'm mentioning this True Media. It has actually done so much work in this space, trying to highlight the threat of disinformation. And it also gives data, how big this problem is of deepfake, okay? 10 times it has increased. 1740% time it is deepfakes uncovered in North America. And around the world in the year 2023, there were 500,000 deepfake videos, okay? And notable deepfakes are there. It lists this. The others are global. This fake news broadcast is an Indian one. It has listed there. And of course, you are also familiar with the NRN case, wherein the original video was morphed and then, he was made to appear as if he is promoting something. That's why Narayan Murthy at this money control, he says that they are very important. Now I come to one of the final aspects of my talk. Do I have another 5 minutes? Or should I stop here? Shall I go on?
Yes,
Go ahead,
ma'am.
go
Yes,
ahead,
you please
go
answer.
Okay, so social network analysis, as I mentioned, is my area of research work, which I use after constructing or providing the theoretical construct for disinformation. As I said earlier, we need to look at detecting the news and also detecting the path or the spread of the fake news. And one of the tools for this is the social network analysis, with which I've been very familiar with. I've been using this. So social network analysis basically is derived from graph theory. And then it basically says we have this network of people or network of objects wherein each pair is connected by a link. So generally what we say is there is a link between two nodes, right? Supposing I send an email to Mohan, for example, then there is this link between me and Mohan, right? So that is what is called as the node. If there is a message from one person A to B, then that becomes the link. whereas the node A and node B will be person X and person Y. So that is the essence of network. And in fact, everyone is linked. In fact, I would suggest if someone is interested in understanding SNA, or what is now known as the new science of networks. And network science has become a very, I would say, well advanced discipline. Okay. Barabasi, who's written this, has written a couple of books, has done a lot of research in this. This is one of the books, okay, by Barabasi, called Linked. And he gives an idea of what is this new science of networks. He's done a lot of research in this. So social network analysis is actually a tool, or you can even say a lens that you use to understand the network behavior, and behavior of nodes meaning, for example, people, etc. Okay, that is the essence of social network analysis. It's a collection of theories and methods based on the assumption that the behavior of actors, that is individuals, or it could be by groups or even organizations, is affected by their ties to others and the networks in which they are embedded. So basically, that is the essence of SNA. That is, we know that people, when they form certain groups, when they are having links between each other, there is a connection, and this network affects their own, as Mohan mentioned, public opinion, or their behaviors, etc., are affected by this. Okay. So basically, it's not about, when we say social network analysis, we are not talking about just, tweeting. It's about the connection between one tweet to the other, and between two people, how it is shared, when people share it, when people respond to it. All these are different measures, okay, of the social network analysis. And in fact, many of the social movements, such as civil rights movements to our more recent ones, campaign against corruption that happened in India some 10 years back, Occupy, all of these studies, they have done the studies of this. They show that it is the actually social network that influence people to join these movements, or, have a certain way of working towards it. So SNA essentially makes sense of our world, shapes our preferences, and influences the choices that we make. That's why the primary goal of SNA is to develop metrics that help us to gain a better understanding of particular network structural features. That's why I use the tagline, making the invisible visible, because the network structure is invisible to us. What is visible is only the behavior or actions, but the network structure actually reveals the hidden connections and makes it visible. So it helps us to understand who is influential in a network. This is very important in studying disinformation. Okay, and so I will not go into the details of this. Just give one case study of how SNA was used, to understand how they were able to actually get Saddam Hussein then. This is a case study that I have taken from Barabasi's book, that is Network Science. Okay, they were, US allies were able to actually capture Saddam Hussein, not based on any other intelligence, but basically trying to understand the network behind Saddam Hussein. That was how they were able to capture Saddam Hussein. Okay, it's a case study of SNA. That is why Barabasi gives it as a case study, because these networks are stable. As Mohan mentioned, we have known each other for 40 years. But today's event is just one of the events that together. So that's what it means by stable networks, right? These are stable networks. Sometimes, it could help us understand what is happening. So I will not go into the details, except saying that what I already mentioned, actors and links. So a tie, and then that is how the essence of two aspects of social network. The actors are the nodes, or sometimes there also could be teams or organizations, are the ties and the links. The tie could be an email, it could be, let's say, co-authorship, it could be a chat, or simply a connection, or it could be even let us say, a customer, investor, etc. Those kinds of relationships are also known as ties. Okay. So what is important is network parameters. So when in SN we use the network parameters, the number of nodes, how many nodes are there in that network, number of links, These two constitute the metrics or parameters for understanding the structural features of a network. Okay. So as I already mentioned, graph theory is behind this network. So this is how graph theory is used to study the social networks also. It maps and measures the relationships and flows between people and groups. That's the key here. Okay. The flow of disinformation can be identified and used in order to actually mitigate disinformation. That is the major concern here in the context of disinformation phenomena. Okay. So in social network analysis, I've just shared some of these things that I have already done in this case of using social network analysis. Co-authorship network between, as Mohan mentioned, I've been working in the area of digital libraries. I published a paper in IEEE 2010 that was studying the network connection between our co-authorship network between 11 top authors. As you can see, so clear it is. The networks are very clear in this example. So this is the same, how they are each connected. That's how, even a discipline moves forward. Even, as I said, social movements, but also things happen only because of them. Now, I'll just end with this centrality measure, which is one of the measures that is used in order to, that was a measure that was used in mapping the terrorist network for Saddam Hussein and, 9/11 attack, okay? That's another case study. This is the case study of the 9/11, terrorists who are involved in this, and this could be unraveled using the SNA. So how Muhammad Atta, who was one of the, see here, the central node, that is, you can identify the central node and how the conspiracy was developed. See, three measures are used: integration, reach, and connector. As you can see in this slide, Muhammad Atta gets the top. That means he is the key figure. He was a key figure, in fact, in the 9/11 attack. Okay, so centrality is one of the network feature which is used, which I have generally used in my studies. Okay, the position of a particular node, centrality essentially refers to position of a position of a node in a network. Local centrality, there are different centralities. That is, for example, degree centrality, betweenness centrality, and closeness centrality, and eigenvector centrality. These are four measures of centrality. Closeness centrality, which I have already mentioned, degree centrality, betweenness centrality, eigenvector centrality. These are the centrality measures that are normally used. Okay, and in my research, I have used these centrality measures to study the disinformation phenomena. Because as I mentioned, detection and prevention is one aspect of disinformation or mitigating disinformation. Another aspect of mitigating disinformation is to identify and minimize the spread. In order to do that, SNA gives us the necessary tool. We can study a network of any particular network, whether it is a group of WhatsApp or whether it's a Twitter, etc., and study it adds value to our analysis and modeling of that. And there have been any number of studies done in different aspects, whether it is COVID data or other data, Twitter data, Facebook data, all data have been used in order to study the path or the flow of disinformation within a network. That is what I have used. I have done in my research. So network centrality metrics is what I have used. Depending on this, I have done some study of for example, the COVID misinformation, or what is known as the infodemic. Okay, so some 800,000 Twitter data was collected, and then this is a samples of some of the analysis that was done. So most cited words in the tweet collection, the distribution of tweet credibility levels, and then these are the three networks. I think this network is not very visible. See, I mentioned it's not just about email or a tweet, etc. You also have to identify basic criteria of that connection. Say somebody might be a connection in Facebook, somebody might be connected in a particular group. Unless there is a regular communication, the connection is considered weak. Whereas when there is a regular email or somebody commenting, etc., on that is considered as a stronger connection. In this one, for example, three sub-figures I have used. That is those who retweet. Okay, retweet a particular tweet. Those who mention the For example, just mention that. They don't retweet it, but let us say, I say, according to Mohan, this is what it is. Then some people who reply, as you can see, retweeting is stronger in sense, more people do the retweeting. A smaller community of people mention that, and still smaller people community, or a small number of people actually reply to a community graph. This gives us, this is the stronger one, where this actually carries a more, I would say, impact. Okay, that is what is shown. So this is just another same data set, how we can retweet network, mention network, and then reply network. Identify them, then this using the, I normally use the Gephi as the SNA tool, and you can generate this data. So finally, I would like to conclude that there is a long way to go in cracking the code of disinformation. My research is only just a small step, an empirical study in addition to the theoretical construct of, that is, we need to understand that this is a wicked problem. It needs collaboration across different disciplines. It's not just about technology, because you have technology to help us, but people need to be aware of and sensitized to not adding to the fuel of fake news by taking, as I keep saying, pause and check for its authenticity before you forward it. Okay. So basically, my research is both, there is a theoretical component and there is an empirical component. Theoretical component, I have tried to define and understand why people behave the way they do, why they spread this information. It's a social contagion. It's a defective method of creating information, processing information, as well as distributing or consuming information. And this is primarily because of the social contagion theory. And empirical method I have used the SNA I'll use it as a line of inquiry to understand or study the spread of misinformation and how it can be used to mitigate disinformation. So with this method and approach, I have tried to apply to different diverse data sets, and I would like to conclude and thank each one of you for your patient hearing. I'm sorry for extending the time. Sorry. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for the very informative and excellent presentation. I will go for the question and answer section. Here we have a few questions.
Shall I stop sharing? Yeah.
Yes, please. Two questions are given during the registration. Now I will read out the questions. We have a question from Annapurni Vishwanathan.
Okay.
What is the role of information professionals in the face of the ongoing challenge of synthetic information?
Okay, thank you for that question. In fact, why I'm thanking you is, in fact, I have been telling for the last 10 to or 15 years that this is one area wherein information professionals can recalibrate their focus. Okay, because information professionals are information science or library information science is a profession known for trusted information. People go to libraries for trust. So this is an area where information scientists can help. When people come and ask for, if you are from the LIS field, you have heard about the reference service, etc. We should have established libraries or reference desks as a place for people to ask, is it an authentic information? Share with us, that kind of thing could have been done. Anyway, it's not lost. You can still I would say recalibrate, reimagine your profession within this area of disinformation. You can use these techniques to help people answer the question, is it authentic or not? Is it fake or fact?
Another question from Stuart. The EU is regulating AI and the AI Act has been enacted. Will countries like India follow this trend? Can you give us some insights about the challenge and pros and cons of legislating laws to regulate AI and misinformation?
Thank you. Well, you are right. EU has enacted this AI Act, which actually controls some of the aspects of, or rather say, bad aspects or the negative aspects of AI. In India, we do not have an act as of now. What we have is, in fact, Niti Aayog, for example, has started a program called AI for All and has developed many, policy documents regarding AI, basically to say how India can enter the AI field in terms of its, companies, etc. And it has only given certain advisories. There is no act as said. The only act that could come come closer to the AI is the DPR, that is, Digital Data Privacy Act, okay, wherein the Personal Information Act, I'm not getting the exact title of the DPD or what is it?
DPDP.
That act, which actually provides for or safeguards the privacy and personal data. Okay, that is the one, because that's also one aspect of AI. That is, your personal data becomes not it's not what you call as, it's not public, right? It's not shared by everybody else. That's important. That's the only one I would say that come near an act. But the challenge here is, since you asked about the challenge in regulating too much is, in fact, they try to do something. What happens is, you will be curbing innovation to a certain extent. See, India did not want to do that. That's why they said some of these rules, etc., apply to large global platforms, but not to startups. The reason being, you don't want to curb innovation. So it's again a double-edged. Any legislation is a double-edged sword also. So we have to somehow navigate within this space and then manage it. Okay, that's the main challenge. I would say there are certain laws, existing laws I'm talking about, the IT Act, etc., which can be used to govern our guard. The companies have to do it. They are also doing, responsible AI is, in fact, another talk of the town where companies are also doing.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. Now, another question from K.R. Jaykumar, Director. Misinformation or fake news created once keeps propagating. Even when the news is identified as fake, can we make the fact that the news is fake to latch on to the information while it thrives in the ecosystem?
Yes, you are right. In fact, that's why I gave you the example of even, the what is known as the Lancet MMR autism fraud, right? The paper is retracted, and then the doctor is actually discredited. That is, he's no longer a doctor, but still it created that movement, and then that's why it's a social phenomenon. See, I can showcase people that this is fake, but people make their own opinions. They think that, what is the truth? What is the proof that you have the proof, right? So that's one. So even in science, after retraction, etc., also it's not that easy, because that's why I said it's a social phenomenon as well. It's not just a objective truth. In fact, that's a challenge today. How do we, you cannot just say fake, because you have this, as I told you earlier, both globally as well as in India too, for some of these viral videos and photos, etc., these newspapers as well as, the fact-checking websites, they have this list. They continue to have. But then people don't follow that, right? That's where the problem. You cannot just say fake, because you have this, as I told you earlier, both globally as well as in India too, for some of these viral etc.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay.
Ma'am, I have 2-3 questions in the same pattern. So I'm generalizing all the questions.
Okay.
So is there any authenticate information or authenticate method to find or validate the information which is available in the social media?
Yes, in fact, for social media only, you have many of this, websites and, basically trying to say this content is fake. Okay, like forensic, the photo forensic, because social media generally uses images, right? Fake images, etc. So one has to go and check this, or else, one can Like individually, if I'm wanting to check whether it is fake or not, I can do it myself. Just do a simple Google image search. Normally you will find answers to it. If it is too viral, then as I mentioned earlier, some of these newspapers etc continuously monitor and then give out. In India, for example, India Today group is one of the groups of, media groups which have a dedicated team as well as a portal for fact checking. So there are various things, including social media one, right? There are many social media related I would say, both crowd-based as well as expert-based. When I say expert-based, I mean these media houses doing. The others are crowd-based one. There are many tools available for that.
Yes, ma'am. A few questions are there in the chat box. We'll pick one or two because of time constraint. In the age of artificial intelligence, how to control the facts and fake information? In the age of artificial intelligence, how to control the facts and fake information?
How to control or convert?
Control.
Control. I don't think you should control the facts, right? Facts are facts. Facts are sacred. You don't have to control. I don't know whether you meant by, the person meant by too much of our information overload, etc. Maybe if that is the case, yes, information overload is a problem. But inference, see, that's why I said all said and done, even today, within the age of AI, human intelligence is supreme. AI, if you ask me, is an assistant. Just like, Google came and then, we were started using Googling and then trying to verify. Then I'm just giving some examples of media or the portals that are available, or at least that's what we started doing, or I as a researcher, as a common person, I do, right? First, I Google it. For any topic, if I'm doing some research, etc., then usually I go to Wikipedia also. Nowadays, I even ask the Chat GPT so that I get a more comprehensive one, right? So that I don't miss out anything, right? So the inference is still with the individual or the human being. As of now, I would say, and it should be the same. In fact, that is where the importance of individuals governance comes, right? Because hallucination I just mentioned. Chat GPT or AI can't be relied upon so well because still it can get it wrong. It can make up things. So we have to be extra smart. If you ask me, we have to be extra smart, smarter than before, because we have to verify whether what Chat GPT or AI has given is really right or wrong. In fact, even if you go to, for example, health, see, even in the health domain, there is so much of AI being used. But at the end of the day, because, for example, radiologists, people are talking about in this age of AI, you don't need radiologists. But still, end of the day, it helps you to do the work. And then finally, a human radiologist has to check and see whether it is really a cancerous one or not. I would say inference is to be by the individual. And it can be faster today because you don't have to do the dirty work of cleaning up so much of data, so much of facts. You get that and then you just verify. That would be my answer.
Yes, ma'am. I think it's a final question. No. How can we prevent plagiarism from the content generated by Gen AI? Any insights on what can be used to stop it?
See, even Gen AI, in fact, you can easily make out, there are tools available to say that this is plagiarized from ChatGPT, for example, or any of those, okay? And other than that also now, see, I'll tell you one thing. If you want to get good answers from ChatGPT, you need to be smart and ask good questions, right? Just as from Google also. Just because it was there, you are not getting information. So in order to be able to get, for example, as teachers, professors, etc., today, all over the world in the academia, academics have started to identify ChatGPT based answers or assignments. There are tools available, software tools are available, and also, as I said, you do the human oversight. There are many software tools available depending on which AI, generative AI is used.
Thank you,
Even
ma'am.
the regular plagiarism check like Turnitin, etc., they are also now using all this to show you that it is taken from ChatGPT.
Thank you, ma'am. As we conclude this enlightening session, it's my privilege and honor to deliver the vote of thanks. First and foremost, I extend my heartfelt gratitude to our distinguished speaker, Dr. Shalini Arush, founder and chairperson of MIRA. Her captivating and thought-provoking presentation on decoding information, mitigating misinformation in the social media, and generative AI approach has provided us with the valuable insights into the challenges and strategies for combating misinformation in today's digital age. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you so much.
I would also like to express my sincere thanks to Mr. H.R. Mohan, Chair, Events of IEEE CS Madras section, for his gracious introduction of our esteemed speaker and for his meticulous coordination of this entire event. Thank you, sir. Finally, a big thank to all the participants for your engagement and thoughtful questions which have enriched today's session. Your presence and enthusiasm are what make the events like this truly successful. Once again, thank you all for joining us. We look forward to your continued support and participation in our future events. Have a great evening. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Shalini, for a wonderful presentation.
Thanks.
I think it is more than, I think we should conduct a tutorial, not a 1 hour presentation.
I can do a tutorial on social network analysis.
Yes. In fact, no, that is a very, very important, no? Particularly with the, I mean,